these companies that are saying that we run on 100% renewable energy, they don't run on 100% renewable energy. That's obvious. But they are actually making an effort here to do the right thing. And that should be applauded.
Hello, and welcome to Environment Variables, brought to you by the Green Software Foundation. In each episode, we discuss the latest news and events surrounding green software. On our show, you can expect candid conversations with top experts in their field who have a passion for how to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions of software.
Hello. Welcome to This Week in Green Software, the show where we take a deep dive into all things digital sustainability and specifically software development. I'm your host, Oliver Winks, and I'm joined by two of the most wonderful people, Valeria and Addy. Before I ask you to introduce yourselves, we will do that in just a second. I just want to give a sneaky peek as to what we are going to be talking about today. There's two topics. The first is about changes to the greenhouse gas protocol and suggestions that the Green Software Foundation have made to how we do carbon accounting, specifically Scope 2 emissions, carbon accounting. Sounds very technical, but we'll get into that and break it all down in just a moment. I think it's a fabulous suggestion that the Green Software Foundation has made. So I'm quite excited to talk about that one. And the other one is all about AI. What self-respecting tech podcasts would be complete without at least half of the show being dedicated to AI these days. So we're going to be talking about claims that large tech companies have made about how effective AI is at solving the climate change crisis, and specifically looking at the evidence, or rather lack of evidence, that they provide to back that up. So before we get into those topics, Valeria, would you like to give us a little intro about yourself?
Oh, yes, of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Valeria. I work as a tech sustainability consultant. So I basically try to, I always say that I try to build bridges between technology and software and like websites and so on, and sustainability. I do a bunch of many more activities related to communities. I have a YouTube channel, and now I do this podcast. But yeah, the thing is that I really like talking about environmental sustainability. And so, yeah, I'll leave the word to Ali.
Right. So great to meet you all. My name's Ali, and I work in AI hardware engineering at Qualcomm. We try to build the next generation of chips for everyone who wants to use AI. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here to talk about what Ollie just mentioned.
Wonderful. Let's get into it then. We'll start with the Scope 2 emissions changes to the GHG protocol. So for those of you who are listening that may not know what Scope 2 emissions are, or what the GHG protocol is, or anything like that, the GHG protocol is, I think, I don't know if you guys know any better, but I think it's the most widely used GHG protocol for measuring and reporting.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I think there are others out there, though.
Yeah, there are, but like the greenhouse gas, I don't remember when the GHG protocol started, but yeah, it is one of the most commonly used. So yeah, I think that people have ever heard of it.
Yeah, and the Scope 2 part of this of this thing is it specifically looking at the emissions related to electricity use. I think that's basically it in a nutshell. It might be a bit more complicated than that, but I think it's the emissions that are associated with just your electricity use. And I know that the GHG protocol has made some changes, and that's big news because the changes, the protocol hasn't changed in something like crazy, like 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very exciting that people are now open to feedback. Just to remind to our listeners, the Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3 emissions, what these terms mean. Scope 1 means emissions that are caused directly by you. Scope 2 means emissions that are caused by products that you use. but they come from someone else. For example, electricity is a great example of a scope 2 emission. And scope 3 would be all of the downstream effects from your supply chain and your business. And now we have this very exciting opportunity to define these more concretely, to understand what is exactly going on in each of these categories, and let's say to add more granularity. So yeah, let's dive into what we have here.
Yeah, thanks for clearing that up. That's really helpful. I think the suggestions that the GSF have made are really important suggestions. I was kind of surprised to find that the way that carbon accounting works for the electricity use, scope 2 emissions from the electricity use, is that you take a kind of annual average. And that seems a little basic, because as we all know, carbon intensity, that's the amount of carbon that's released for every unit of energy that is produced, fluctuates quite a lot from place to place and also from time to time. And it seems that the way that scope 2 emissions are currently being calculated has been somewhat abused. And I actually had a look around for evidence of this. And Chris Adams, who wrote the most amazing little quote at the end of the article, which I'll read out in just a second, is quite right. Quote. It's a wonderful quote, isn't it? Yeah, he's quite right that there are loads of data centers out there, tons, that are claiming that they're running on 100% renewable energy. And yet they're located in, like, the middle of some major city where it can't possibly be running off wind or solar, because there's just not enough land in that area to produce that much renewable energy. They can't possibly do that. So they're connected to a very dirty grid, but yet somehow can claim that they are using 100% renewable energy because they have purchased energy from a company who is producing renewable energy, but they are located ways away in some other part of the world, but also producing that energy at some other time. So it's not linked in time or location to where you are supposed to be using the energy. That seems to me insanely misleading. I don't know what you guys think.
I concur. I think Valeria really wants to add something.
Yeah, no, I wanted to add something before, related to more generally the greenhouse gas protocol, because I think that today we will be talking about the greenhouse gas protocol related to software in general, but the greenhouse gas protocol wasn't actually created for software. It's a more general protocol, and this thing leads to even more difficulties to translate what the greenhouse gas protocol and scope 1, 2, and 3 topics are in software, and so this becomes even more and more difficult, because usually standards are difficult to understand, and they are more how do I say that, they refer more and more to the legal aspects rather than the practical aspects. Yep. But with software we want more and more practical things rather than legal. And yeah, so I just wanted to mention this.
That's a great point. That's a really great point.
Yeah. And the other thing that I was thinking about when I was reading the article that Chris wrote is the fact that, of course, the first thing that made me this is why this didn't change before. It was related related to the annual data, which is super crazy, because as we said before, carbon intensity changes very, very fast. And so with more granularity, we have more precision. And with more precision, we can also have more precise decisions, more practical decisions that we can use on our day-to-day basis. And another thing that I wanted to bring up today with this conversation with you is that I went into some of like rabbit hole of thoughts.
Those are the best. That's the best. Hit us with it.
Yes.
That's what you're there for.
And like my question and my doubt was like, if we talk about strategies that can lead to having a more precise carbon accounting, like for example, the example that Ollie said before with the data centers that are purchasing energy like 2,000 kilometers away from where they are working. It's obviously a fact and data that is misleading the actual truth of how the company is working. But where do all the like carbon aware strategies position into these topics? I
Really
had this
important,
thought because right now the protocol doesn't point out anything related to how carbon aware positions into this discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
Yeah, it would mean that you could do a lot of hard work and actually be having really good results, reducing your carbon emissions, and it mean nothing on the report. It just not show up on the report, which
Yes.
is perverse. Why would you go to all of the effort of doing this if you're not going to get any of the sort of benefits from the reporting? It sounds crazy. I'm just going to read out what Chris, because I think this just sums up what the problem is. So I just want to read out what Chris wrote here. So under the current annual GHG carbon accounting rules, you can say that you're running on 100% renewable energy, even when your servers are powered by a massive on-site gas-fired power plant built just for your data center and no one else. Switching to an hourly approach closes loopholes like this and brings us much closer to reality-based accounting practices. I think that just summed up the whole thinking behind this proposed change.
Great code. That's a very good way to look at it. Yes. No, I agree. I just wanted to, I read the code and I felt like, yes, this is a solution. But I was thinking if people would accept it, because there's a reason why we have this problem in the first place. So companies can claim that they're 100% renewable power when they're not. So I'm very curious how we can incentivize the adoption of this change.
Oh yeah, it's definitely happening as well. Like I said, I had a poke around some of the green data centers that are based in the UK, because that's where I'm from, and most of them, the vast, I won't name any of them. Obviously, they make that actual claim that we run on 100% renewable energy, and then poking a little bit deeper, you find out that their data centers are based in a part of the country that couldn't possibly be running on 100% renewable energy. There are vanishingly few places in the world where you can actually run a data center on 100% renewable energy. The UK, London, is not one of them. So, so this is clearly a loophole that's being abused, and I think it should be closed. I'm in 100% agreement with Chris on this and the GSF, and I'm very glad that they've made this suggestion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but also because I think that even in the previous episodes that we did, the main point is always the fact that we need more transparency. Like, even if things are bad, even if we are doing bad things, let's be transparent with that. Because if we are not transparent, if we don't say that clearly, like we are doing, like, for example, we obviously do not run on 100% renewable energy. We run on 30%, like, for example. That's okay.
Yeah.
We are saying that we have to do better, but what we are stating is actually true. And these type of things like make me so mad.
Completely true, because it does undermine the effort that they are making. I mean, these companies that are saying that we run on 100% renewable energy, they don't run on 100% renewable energy. That's obvious. But they are actually making an effort here to do to do the right thing, and that should be applauded. And I think that we should be, if they were open about that, let's say, look, we aren't running on 100% renewable energy, but this is what we're doing to try and improve matters. That's fantastic, brilliant. I think there needs to be some honesty about it. It's the dishonesty that is the problem. And actually, they've turned something that's really positive into something that's really negative. It's like, why? You didn't need to make that claim.
Yes. Yeah, it's dishonesty and also disinformation, because we're transforming something that is actually a positive thing in a actually very, very negative. And also we're not giving a good example for other people and for other companies, because even other companies like see the example from those companies, and they're like, oh, but if they are saying that they run on 100% renewable energy, like, we can emulate the same thing that they are doing, and we can say that as well. But it's not that. It's not that. It's not the solution.
No.
Yeah.
Adi, you have something to add to our madness?
I am equally as mad as you. I'm part of the asylum, so to speak. No, I agree with you. It's the problem, and I think transparency is the first step. And also, I guess one part of the problem is that delivering and storing renewable energy, that infrastructure is not ready, but it's not ready because there's not enough demand. So we can have solar during the daytime. You cannot have it during night, of course, but people don't use solar because it's hard to store. And because people don't use solar, the industry does not see as much investment. And when we become transparent, when we become honest that, okay, it is 30% renewable, then there would be more investment. There would be more demand for it. And when there's more demand, of course, more money will flow into it. The economies of scale kick in, and the entire industry grows. So it will actually have a flywheel effect, because the more the money goes into renewables, the cheaper the cost of producing renewable energy becomes. And the cheaper the energy is, the more people use it. So it's a positive loop, but we need to get to the positive reinforcement step. I hope that GSF's proposal and the amendments to the GHG protocol is one step in this direction. But let's see. Yeah. I think it would be a hugely positive thing. Like you said, not just for closing down this particular loophole, but also incentivizing people to take carbon awareness more seriously. Because now you can actually get the reward for doing the good work. It's recognized formally. I think it's a much better way of doing things.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
Right. Well, there we go. We've put the worlds to right. The world to rights, I should say. Let's move on to the next topic, which is an equally frustrating topic. So this was an article in Wired that was looking at big tech companies, or some of the claims that big tech companies have made about generative AI. I thought it was a really, really good piece. Basically, to summarize what this was all about, some rather large tech companies, I'm sure you know the ones I'm talking about, have claimed that AI is one of the best solutions to the climate change crisis, and that it would lead ultimately to reductions in climate change. But as we all know, AI has a rather large carbon footprint all on its own. And it seemed odd to me that something which is so widely known to have a large carbon footprint was being touted as a wonderful solution to the problem, especially because when the author of the article started looking into it, I think it was the author of the article, it might have been somebody they were writing about, actually. When they looked into it, they found that the evidence that these large tech companies were using to make these claims was sparse, to say the least, in some cases non-existent. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's a great article. It's very interesting to see. They build upon trail, like how typically you build upon trail. Paper trail is that there's a study before, and then you results from that study to the next study and the next study and the next study. But our author here, or the person that the article cites, they did all the back tracing, which is really hard work, which is it's commendable to go to the source and find out that the source was actually just some client meetings. It was a consulting firm's client meetings that led them to produce some data, which eventually became the definitive source for the numbers that are coded in the article. And that's surprising, right? It's very surprising how we can make an authoritative claim with a very subjective source of information.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think for the most part, people won't look in. People are quite trusting, and they won't look into. They won't dig down. They'll read the article, go, "Oh, that's interesting," and carry on with their lives. You know, nobody has the time to, or very few people have the time to go digging through sources and reading everything. It's all too easy. I mean, this is essentially how greenwashing happens, right? You know, yep. you play on that fact. You make some claim, and many people can actually go and check it out. So it's kind of unsurprising that was happening, but it seems a little bit too much, though. That something which is causing a lot of the problem. You know, this is not a lot of the problem, but it's a significant problem that we face. You know, AI usage going up at the rate that it's going up, the number of new data centers being constructed, and the amount of energy that those data centers consume. It is a little bit worrying looking at the projections. So it seems a bit perverse that they're saying, "Don't worry, you know, this is going to solve the problem," whilst it's pretty obvious that it's going to be causing some of the problem, at least. So yeah,
I agree with you 100%. It's going to cause more problems on the street, right? What we just discussed. The fact that we're not accepting, the fact that we're not transparent of the source or whatever the truth is, it's what's causing problems. And I don't know, you know, I just hope that people come clean, but it's, hey, I think eventually things will get better. So I don't know. What do you think, Valeria?
Yeah, I was loading my thoughts on this because, you know, even with some of our previous episodes, I'm super critical on this. But yeah, like I want to focus with one specific thing. The fact that, like, as the article said, and then what we've introduced for this news, it was the fact that people say, yeah, we will eventually like solve problems that AI is causing, but we don't know who will solve those problems, when and how. And at the same time, problems are like piling up and are increasing more and more and more. We are basically saying, let me, I don't know, throw away in my garden like some things that are lighting up, and then, oh, a fire is coming up. Oh, I didn't know why and how I've made this. It's the same. Like I sometimes ask people, like, are you actually aware of the things that you are using just so casually? Because if you're aware and you're aware of the social and political and environmental consequences, that's okay. Yeah, we have different battles to battle every day. And maybe that's not your battle, okay? But people are not aware. And this is actually super connected to what we were saying before, to the transparency topic. Because sometimes I try to explain to people some of the consequences and some of the things that AI is just hiding under the hood, and no one is looking at them. But I sometimes look at them because I really enjoy being critical with technology. And when I explain some of the things, people are like, oh, yeah, I didn't know. But when I started using this type of tool, I didn't read anything related to this. That's what I'm saying. We need more transparency. We need more explanation. And so I think that we always come back to the same problem. And I think that every time we have the opportunity to share some of the things that AI, but all other tools that we are using just casually every day, every time we have the opportunity to share about those consequences and talk about those tools in a more like objective way and critical way, we have to do that, because if we don't do that, people will continue using tools just like they are. It's not a big problem.
AI is an incredibly powerful tool. I think that's been made abundantly clear over the last 2 or 3 years. I am sure that it is being used in some really interesting ways, and I'm sure that people are using it to come up with solutions for the climate change crisis that we're facing. I don't know of any, which is strange. Now, I would love to know what AI is actually being used for in that field. I think it should be spoken about more. Maybe this is on me. Maybe I'm just reading the wrong articles. Maybe I should stop playing computer games and start reading journalism and all of that kind of stuff.
No. We do both. We don't stop playing computer games. We do both.
We can do both. But I was wondering if either of you know of any projects. Have you read any articles, seen any YouTube videos or whatever that's highlighting, showcasing some of the stuff that people are using AI for to solve specifically this problem? You seen anything?
I honestly have not seen much, and I'm not someone who is super up to date with AI news, to be honest, because I'm the old man shouts at clouds kind of. No, come on. What I can do is I can promise I will take a look at the sources and I'll try to find something for our listeners, because it is important. I think what you've mentioned is very important, that we need to find tools, people, applications, papers, articles, anything that is discussing this kind of applications for AI, because it's an important application. And this is the perfect platform. Our podcast should be the place where people find this. So
Sure.
I will take a look.
Be amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd love to showcase some of that work on here. That would be wonderful. I just literally don't know of any, which I find kind of odd, because it's like here are three people that are clearly into digital sustainability, and we're all tech people here interested in AI. If anyone would have been exposed to these projects, it would have been us, surely. And none of us have seen anything. It seems strange.
I do have one thing to share, that it's not related to climate specifically, but it is related to biodiversity.
That's great. That's great. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I can maybe share the link, but it's basically I don't want to go more into detail because I don't remember all the things about the article, but I've shared it in my YouTube channel. So that's why I remember that I read something related to this. But basically, in New York City, some researchers had to count how many squirrels are in Central Park. And basically, until last year, they had a group of volunteers that had to go and count all the squirrels. And
how do you do that?
Yeah, as humans.
How do you do that? I would love to know, how do you do that?
Yes, there's a big problem if we have to count squirrels in Central Park, because squirrels move around. So you don't know if you have already counted that one or not.
Exactly. I'm going to figure out if it's a brother, if it's a sister, if it's a mother of the same squirrel that I just saw. I don't know, man.
Yeah, we don't know if that one is Mario or is, Oliver or is, I don't know. But yeah, at that point, this guy went to the group and said, we can use AI to do this one. We can use specific models that can basically apply statistic models. And so we can have an estimate that can actually be as near as possible to the correct number of squirrels in Central Park, rather than the ones we can count as humans. And so I only have this project, but I don't have anything right now related to climate.
There must be loads of projects like that.
There would be loads of projects.
There will be.
I think so.
I'm sure there are. I'd love to know more.
We should invite people to talk about those projects.
I think
absolutely.
This is a great time. So to all of our listeners, please, if you know anyone who's working in this area, who thought of a clever application for environment, for anything in biology, biodiversity, conservation, using AI, please let us know. Please write to us. Please reach out to us on LinkedIn, Twitter, any platform that you prefer. And we would love to have you over on the show to talk about it. Any papers, any articles, it's an open invitation, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
great idea.
Please.
Yeah, the example that you gave there, Valeria, actually does highlight something that came up in the article, which I thought was a really interesting point. So the AI that the nameless large tech companies are selling are basically large language models, generative AI, huge frontier language models. And I'm in the I was in software development world, so I see Claude a lot of the time, Claude Code a lot of the time. So it's these sorts of tools that are being used. But these models are very different to the kinds of models that are being used for, say, the example that you just gave, the identification of squirrels, which is that is a essential part. That's a sentence that I never thought I would be saying today. But clearly, that's not a large language model. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they've figured out some way of adapting a large language model to do this job. I don't know. I'm no expert in squirrel identification, but I imagine that it will be some other AI model. I'm sure it will be some kind of neural network. I'm sure that neural network will look very similar to the kinds of neural networks used in large language models, but it's not going to be the same. And therefore, the energy consumption of that type of model is likely to be different to the large language models that we're all being
That's
sold.
A great point.
Yes.
So I thought this was a wonderful point in the article, that they're basically saying AI is going to solve all of our problems. So therefore AI good, use our AI. But that's a massive oversimplification of the problem, because you're saying, hey, use our AI models, the ones that are generating enormous amounts of emissions, and kind of justifying that by taking other models of AI which aren't generating all of those problems and saying, look, it's all good. And I would like to get your thoughts on that, because I thought it was a wonderful point that the author.
That's a really great point. I agree with you completely. You show the real model with the real use case. For example, that would be, I'm guessing it would be a CNN, a convolutional network, to figure out how to detect the squirrels in the image, and then you get a lot of footage and you figure out, okay, I already counted you, but that's your brother. So
it must be right. There'll be some kind of CNN.
Yeah. But the LLMs are a completely different ballgame. And I don't know. What do you think, Valeria?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Actually, I didn't plan to talk about squirrels in this episode.
Hey, it's a great.
I'm glad you did.
I love squirrels. We love squirrels. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so cute.
I know.
But aside from this,
they're so cute.
I was reading the article, and actually, it is like a small startup or a small company that is actually AI. It's called AI powered something. I don't remember the name. So I think that they do a lot of different things, and they started with this type of biodiversity topics and projects. But yeah, that's a different story.
Actually, this reminds me of another very similar project, which seeing that you brought this up, that I saw another article.
Is it related to squirrels?
It's not,
please,
but it is.
Please tell me it's related to birds. Please tell me they were counting the number of birds in
It's trees.
It's trees. Okay.
Actually this was kind of interesting. So I'll see if I can dig the article out again. I'll see if I can remember, and I'll try and remember the details. I'll probably butcher the details a little bit, but it was something to do with so carbon offsetting, tree planting, and a company made a drone that would fly over vast areas of land. And it was identifying the trees, their age based on their size and everything, but also their species, so that they could basically track whether these tree planting programs are actually working, or whether, exactly, successful. Because, whether, you've planted a bunch of trees, great. Does that mean that tree is going to live until it's 40 years old or older? No, it might die long before then. So you need to, and also you need to check whether the company that's planting the trees are actually planting the correct species, or whether they're just planting another species which is cheaper, or, for whatever reason. So it was kind of an interesting thing, and it actually, it's a very similar kind of problem. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I just want to notice that we started this topic saying none of us knows a project, and now we are talking about trees and squirrels.
See, this is a great point, right? So this is also for our listeners saying, if you remember anything, please let us know.
Yes, please. Yes,
call
please.
Us, contact us.
If you find curious, social media posts, and you're like, is this real or is this only AI generated? Please send the links to us.
But although both of the projects that we're talking about here are amazing projects, wonderful, I'd love to get behind it and support it in any way I can. And it's definitely a really good use of AI, because how else would you do this? It'd be really hard. So, but these projects aren't specifically looking at the climate change problem. They're actually kind of tracking probably the effects of climate change rather than allowing us to do something to solve the problem. I'd be much more interested to see if it's being used in, I don't know, ways, maybe unlocking strange chemistries that could sequester CO2 out of the atmosphere or something like that. I'm just sort of, spitballing here, but there must be projects like that. It'd be wonderful to kind of hear about them. I think we lost Addy, but he did have to run for.
Yes, he did have to run with the squirrels. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that was it. The squirrel talk got too much.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, stop with the joke. Yeah, please be serious. But yeah, I was trying to remember if I saw or read something about climate change and projects that are using AI. But I think that if I were to read something about that, I would very, very remember it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that maybe we're not in the correct bubble. I don't know. Or maybe these type of projects are not actually that talked about that much.
Yeah, they might be quite academic, and
yes.
If you were in that academic circle, you would know hundreds and hundreds of these kinds of studies. But actually,
yes, maybe they are like theses or I don't know, research something, and they are not actually like open source projects. Because I think that developers and people in the tech community, I don't want to say that they are not that much interested in this topic, because listeners could like run towards me if they hear this. But I don't like, specifically related to climate change. I don't recall.
Yeah, it seems like
it's so strange.
Yeah, it is. It's odd, but maybe we are just in a bubble, though, because the kinds of like large language models work really well in the computing space. We are writing text, a lot of the time. And what is a programming language other than just a formal textual language? Right?
Yes.
So a large language model is kind of perfect for that space. So maybe we're like I could reel off, crikey, like 100 articles or something about advances and innovations in AI supported programming. But maybe the fact that I'm not like a climate researcher, I'm just not being exposed to these types of articles. But still, I'd love to hear about them. So.
Yeah,
cool.
Me too. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So if anyone is listening or watching this episode, please reach to anyone you can think of in the Green Software Foundation and share the projects with us, share the ideas.
Maybe we could make like a dictionary or a list of cool projects like this, because I kind of feel like AI does receive a pretty bad press because for obvious reasons, right? Because every article you read is about how much energy the AI consumes, and it is a hell of a lot. But I'm sure that there are some really good projects out there that's solving the problem as well. What are they?
Yeah.
What are they?
Yeah, let's be positive.
Yeah. Right. I don't know if we have time to go into another topic. So what I might do is start the closing the discussion down a bit, and looking at the events that are coming up. And there are two. The first is this is a wonderful group, actually. They're really active. So it's a green software development group based in I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation of this, but Karlsruhe in
I
Germany.
agree.
Yes, yeah. They're a super active group. I always see them popping up on Meetup, and they've got a really good following over there. So it looks like they've got an event coming up on April the 7th at 6:30 p.m. That's Central European time, I think. And it looks like it's a hybrid event as well. So if you can't able to, you can join them. Exactly. That's absolutely wonderful. So shout out to the Karlsruhe event organizers, and the other event, which I this is all about Green I/O. So Green I, I'm a big fan of Green I/O. I love the Green I/O conference. Yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic conference. If you have time to get to any Green I/O conference, because they move around the world quite a lot. They come to London once a year, which is the event I go to. And it's always really well run, loads of people, loads of interesting things going on. They've got an event in Singapore on April the 14th and 15th. So if you're in that part of the world, get on over to Green I/O, because it's an absolutely fantastic conference. Can't recommend it enough. So they are the two announcements of upcoming events. I think that is everything we have time for. So first of all, just a big thank you for tuning in and listening, and big thank you to our two wonderful co-hosts, Addy, who unfortunately had to run off earlier, and Valeria, who is still here. Thank you very much, Valeria. And that's quite all right. And hopefully see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Just a reminder to follow Environment Variables on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please do leave a rating and review if you like what we're doing. It helps other people discover the show. And of course, we'd love to have more listeners. To find out more about the Green Software Foundation, please visit greensoftware.foundation. That's greensoftware.foundation in any browser. Thanks again, and see you in the next episode.